Hello everyone, this is Dwight Kelly, and I am one of the researchers on the African American high schools in Louisiana before 1970 History Project. Today we have an informative interview of a New Orleans-born legend in track and field. My colleague, Dr. Russell Hill, had the pleasure of interviewing Dr. Kirk Clayton, a New Orleans native who was a world-class scholar and athlete. Dr. Clayton was a high school 100-yard dash national record holder who also went on to excel in track and field at the collegiate level at San Jose State University in the late 1960s. Dr. Clayton also earned a doctorate degree in education. He was truly an athlete and a scholar. Dr. Kirk Clayton tells his story about growing up in New Orleans and participating in track and field and football during his junior high and senior high school years in New Orleans. And he talks about his transfer to Scotlandville High School in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, his enrollment at San Jose State, his participation on their world-class track team, and his induction into numerous track and field halls of fame. Enjoy listening to this story of a world-class sprinter, an outstanding athlete, and a great scholar. Enjoy.
This is Russell Hill continuing an interview with Dr. Kirk Clayton on today, September 13th, 2021. Hello, Dr. Clayton. Are you there?
Hi, Dr. Hill. Good to talk to you again.
Okay. I'd like to continue our interview, and the first part was quite interesting, but I'm more interested in your experience as a Scotlandville Hornet. And toward the end of the last interview, you explained that you came to Scotlandville High School. Would you mind telling me how you got to Scotlandville High School?
Well, Scotlandville High School was, like you just say, a time of realization of what I was going to do with my life after Xavier Prep. Since they abruptly discontinued sport, and I wanted to continue my sporting career, but I did not have an interest in staying in New Orleans to attend school. That wasn't in the school in New Orleans that I felt that I was able to really enjoy myself. And so I decided to, luckily my parents had moved up to Baton Rouge, and my sister went to Southern University, and when I was in Appaloosa at the Appaloosa Carnival in '64, we learned about that was a Scotlandville High School, and it was in Baton Rouge. So when I arrived, I'd asked my sister where was Scotlandville, and I learned where it was, and then I went over and spoke with the football coach, since my first connection with Scotlandville was for football, and then it mushroomed from there, from the football program to the track program. But my first option was football, and there at Scotlandville.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And who were your coaches at Scotlandville?
Well, we had guys like Coach Breeder was the head coach, William Breeder. We had Coach Walter Banks. We had Coach Melvin Stringer, Coach Willie Sims, and Coach Chuck Lau. Those were the guys who were some of the football coaches we had at the time.
Oh, okay. Now, when you went to Scotlandville High School, let's take your football career.
Okay.
How was it? You going from an established team and then you came into a new team as an unknown entity, or let's say a relatively unknown entity. How did that go for you?
It went well. When I arrived on Scotlandville campus, it was during the early part of the school year with football season, so there wasn't any students there. We were at practice like a spring practice like. So early September when you start practicing before school started. Back in the day, school started in September after Labor Day. Now, how school starts. But then there were no students on campus, and I was just meeting the football team and the coaches. They were very skeptical of me because I was very forthright in what I wanted to do and how I could, benefit and support their team. And they were skeptical. Seeing the guy from New Orleans, because Louisiana people are unique in some ways. When you not from the block, they kind of like, keep you a distance. So I wasn't accepted right away. I had to prove myself. And the first thing they did is once I got my uniform on, they threw me in they called it the pit for football. And they said, okay, Clayton, you get in this pit, and we'll give you some of the guys. You get out of this pit, maybe you can, be part of the defensive team. So they said two of the toughest guys that they had on the team. I broke them down to nothing, and I ended up being on the defensive team.
Okay.
So that was it. I was accepted.
Okay. And so now you got accepted, and you got accepted at what position?
Well, I got accepted basically by the players, and then the coaches had me to play. They tried me first at offense as a wide receiver, and then they wanted me to do defensive back. And so those were the two positions that I played. So that meant I never did come off the field. I was after the offense, and I would run punts back. So it was on the punt team, and so I was on all the teams. I was just one of the regulars.
Oh, okay. And now, who were some of your opponents? This is in the fall of 1965. Am I correct?
Fall of '64.
Fall of '64, and
right.
You are in your sophomore year.
I'm in my 10th grade year. Yes.
Okay. Who were some of your?
I finished my 10th grade year, and I was going into my 11th grade year. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Who were some of your opponents who you had to play against in your when you went to Scotlandville High School?
Well, locally we had Capital McKinley, Cypress Grove, Northwestern, and Clark Appaloosa, DeSoto High School. Mm-hmm. Those were some of the schools we played at the time. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, do you recall any of your opponents and the individuals against whom you competed?
Let's just say we were one of the championship teams that we competed against. Scotlandville played DeSoto High School. Okay. And you may remember this guy, a guy by the name of Vida Blue. Okay. He played at DeSoto High School in 1964 with a quarterback. Okay. And he went on to become one of the greatest pitchers around in baseball. So he was throwing that football like he threw a baseball. But we beat DeSoto High. They came down to Scotlandville that night, and we beat DeSoto that night for homecoming. We played them for homecoming, and we beat DeSoto. That was basically, we beat them 27-19 that night for our homecoming. For the 1964 homecoming at Scotlandville Senior High School. Mm-hmm.
Okay, what about for McKinley High School?
McKinley, we played McKinley, and we tied them 6-6 for the city title, and we had to have a playoff. But as you know, McKinley and Scotlandville were very tough rivals, and if you win the game, you had to win the fight. So we ended up, Coach Breeder decided not to go down to McKinley in the bottom, as they used to call it, to play them. So we forfeited that game, and McKinley went on to do well, I presume. But we did not. We stopped at that point in 1964. Well, we had been undefeated before then, and then had tied McKinley. But to go for the city championship, the district championship, we had to play McKinley again. And since the fight was going to break out, and nobody discerned how to play in an empty stadium like they're doing now with COVID, and in this day and age, they empty out the stadium. But they did not do that at that time, so we just forfeited that game and moved on.
So that ended an undefeated year.
Right. Yeah. Ended our season in '64. We were undefeated until we decided not to play that final city championship game against McKinley.
Okay, and so that ends your junior football career. Now let's go. So in the spring of '65. So spring of '65, track season.
All right.
Tell me, how did that go?
Again, Coach Walter Banks, after football season, we started cross country. And so we had to run cross country to get in shape for the regular track season. So in that March and January, February, and March, we was doing cross country, getting ready for the '65 season. Coach Walter Banks was again skeptical of this guy from New Orleans. Although he was a homeboy, I call him homeboy because he went to Gibble Academy downtown. And when you from downtown to uptown, front of town or back of town, if you're from New Orleans, that's how you live your life, and in parishes. And so he was from downtown, but I was from uptown. So, but anyway, he was a coach, and he was skeptical about my abilities. He knew I'd been successful in New Orleans, but how could we do in Scotlandville? Because we up here in Scotlandville, we run, and we are a team, and I had to learn team effort at Scotlandville. I was always an individual. I ran 100 and the 220 and maybe a leg on the relay, and that was it. But I was basically an individual, and that's what track does for you. It makes you an individual instead of a team player. But at Scotlandville in 1965, Scotlandville ran relays, 440 relay, 880 relay, sprint milling, mile relay, distant milling relay, and the lowly guys ran the individual races like the 100 and the 220. Those were just kind of like the second string guys. But his horses always ran the relays.
Okay. So, do you recall any of the track meets that you all went to in 1965?
Oh, yeah. We went to, we had a number of meets that we did locally, and then we would basically run locally. In Scotlandville, at Southern, everything would basically be at Southern University. We had a couple of home meets called the Rigger Relays. We had J.S. Clark Relays, and we had the Capitol Relays, and we had the New Orleans City Championship Relays down in New Orleans. So I would get a chance to go back home to compete against the same guys that I competed against in junior high at Carter G. Woodson. So I would see those guys again at that particular time. And the Pelican Relays was also the Coupe de Gras in the spring of the year in April, where you met everybody. If you were anybody, you came to the Pelican Relays. And in '65, that was the 7th annual Pelican Relays, in which I competed in there. So that was great. It was all just a blur sometimes, because you had to compete in those different meets. Every weekend you had a track meet. Every Saturday you had a track meet. From March till May.
Okay. Let's talk about the Rigger Relays, because that was the Scotlandville Relay. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Tell me about your experience at the Rigger Relay.
Well, the first Rigger Relays, we lost in 1965, we lost every relay. We got beat. Capitol, McKinley, Cypress Grove, we were hurt. I was injured with pulled muscles, and some of the other guys had pulled muscles, so we didn't really win any races. And I wasn't able to run. So I asked the coach, I said, look, Coach, can you let me run the 100 so we can at least win something? So he said, no, we're going to stick with our game plan. We're going to run relays. So like Henderson Cook, a guy from over in Xavier High School, won the 100 at the Rigger Relays in 1965. I was just looking at that, and I said, that's Henderson Cook. But I didn't know how fortuitous that would be. I would meet Henderson Cook in the state meet in 1966, Okay. So it was amazing, but that was it. So that was my experience at the first Rigger Relays. The second Rigger Relays wasn't any problem. We were all healthy, and we won that in '65. We were undefeated in 1965, but in '66, I'm sorry. But in '65, we did lose the first Rigger Relays.
Okay, and tell me about the relay carnival. You all went to the relay carnivals?
Oh boy, yes, we did. In 1965, and that was they were called the J.S. Clark High School Relay Carnival, and it was held on April 3rd, 1965 at the Clark Stadium over in Opelousas. Head coach, Claude Paxton. He was not only the head coach, he was a starter as well. I did not. We ran all relays again there. I did not run the 100-yard dash. Again, since that we ran all relays and won all relays. 440 relay, 880 relay, and sprint millet relay. And I think they won the mile. I didn't run the quarter, so I think they won the mile relay as well. So we brought all the trophies back to Scotlandville.
Okay.
From our
that was 1965.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And did you go to the Cypress Grove relays at 65?
No, we did not go to Cypress Grove. We went to New Orleans instead.
New Orleans instead.
We went to New Orleans instead in 65, and the player scenario in 65 was a unique year. In 65, I ran, when I did run 100 at the Pelican relays, I ran a 9.5, and so that was one of the top numbers in the nation at the time. Okay. So I was invited to go to a meet called the Senior Bowl track meet, and normally they have football games, the Senior Bowl, the Sugar Bowl. They have different, but then they also had track meets to coincide with those areas. And so I had a chance to, with my times, I had a chance to go to the Senior Bowl meet that fall, and I ran indoors. And then I had a chance to go to the Gulf, it's called the Gulf Federation meet, and that was over in Beaumont, Texas. And that was the first time I had a chance to run against Caucasians and everyone outside of our race in Texas in 1965.
Okay.
So that was a interesting item there. And so I had a chance to win both of those events. I won the Senior Bowl indoor track meet, and then I went over to Beaumont, Texas, and great guys like Clyde Glosson, the Height twins out of Baton Rouge. I could not compete against them in Baton Rouge. They were white, and we were black, so we could only compete against black people. But in Texas, it was open. So I had the Height twins to compete against, and I won that meet. I won that 100-yard dash going away, and I can get the information that I wanted, but they still wouldn't give me the time. So I never did get my time from the Senior Bowl meet. But in the Senior Bowl meet, I was 1/10 of a second off the world record because that was big boy meet. So they had the times and all those things. So I ran a 5.2 in the 50, and the world record was 5.1. And a gentleman by the name of Richmond Flowers had the record 5.3 before me as a high schooler. And so I broke his record. So, and high fortuitous, I had a chance to meet him personally a few years later at the Olympic trials, but that's a whole nother story. So it was kind of, interesting how things mushroomed. And then at the Beaumont meet, which is called the Gulf Federation meet, that was in Beaumont, Texas, I was able to defeat all the Texas hot guys and then the couple of Louisiana guys whom I were not able to compete against in the state of Louisiana. I had a chance to compete against them then, and that was in May of 1965. So 65 was a hot year for me blossoming, and then Coach Walter Banks became a believer that I was going to be a pretty good sprinter in that 65 year.
Okay. Now, so that was the essence of your track career but your track year for 1965.
For 65, yes, that's my junior year,
yeah,
right?
Your junior year. Let's go to the fall of 1966.
Okay.
And this is your senior year.
Senior year.
And football is the sport.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And again, we played a number of the same schools again, and we ended up didn't do as well in football that particular year. But like you say, we won some games, but we lost a number of them, whereas we were not able to get to the city or the district. I think we won the district title, but the city title we didn't win it. So our season was over at that time, and so we went on to to lick our wounds, and then we just left it at that.
Okay.
So far as my football career was concerned at Scotlandville, and then I had begun to get a number of offers in football in that 65 year from different colleges, besides, the local schools, Grambling, Southern, those places like that. They were out-of-state schools, some of the big schools, just for football.
Did you ever participate in the All-Star game?
No, we did not. We did not. That was not an offer to us, although I was a pretty good ball player. But we never did. Scotlandville never did get anyone to go to any of those type of events for whatever reasons. I don't know. We were in the LIALO, and again, we did not participate in any of those items in 1965.
Or 1966 either.
Well, 66 we didn't either, but in 66, things changed a bit so far as I was concerned, because in 66 I ended up, tying the world record. So in 100-yard dash.
No, I was talking football.
Oh, football. Oh, no. In football, no. That was it so far as we were concerned in football. We did not go any farther than that, and so our football season was over in that December. We played our last game. I think we played Northwestern or someone like that, and I think we played Doug Williams. I think we played those guys.
Okay.
I think Doug was still in school at the time.
Okay.
I'm not sure, but anyway, we played Northwestern. That's what I remember. That playing Northwestern.
Okay.
But that was it so far as football is concerned, and we just somewhat Scotlandville, faded into oblivion in a sense, and then I guess we called it a day.
Okay. Now, track, spring of 66.
Right.
How did that go?
Spring of '66 was one of my greatest track years. I again would run relays, but Coach Banks, and if I may regress for a minute to bring more of this into focus, Coach Banks, when we had a time trial one day, and Coach Banks always said, "Man, my guys really run here. We show emotion. We really push hard and stuff." But I was always an easy runner. But I would cover the ground, but I wasn't really straining to do it. And so we had a time trial before one of our meets, and he said, "Okay, Stringer, you time the meet, and we're gonna both time Clayton, see what he does." And that day at Scotlandville, I ran a 9.6, but it was so easy that the coach he took the time. He said, I'm parroting what Banks had stated. He read the stopwatch. He looked at the stopwatch and went, "Wait a minute, Stringer, what you got?" And Stringer had the same time. And they said, "Wait a minute, Stringer, don't you tell nobody what we got here." And so that's how I blossomed into my 66th year, but not telling anyone what type of time that I was running, because no one had been running that type of time in high school. Mm-hmm. So he wanted to make sure he kept that under wraps until he brought me out at the Pelican Relays or some of the other big meets that he could get more recognition, because they would not believe the times that I would run. So they would just say any kind of time just to appease the people. But real times was never reported, because they didn't think people would believe a high schooler could run that fast at that time. So. Okay.
And so the first meet again was the Riga Relays in '66.
The first meet was one of the first meets was the Riga Relays, and then after that we went to New Orleans, and I ran the 100 there and did well there. I think I ran a 9.5 or 9.6 in New Orleans. So, and then after that we came back and ran against some of the local meets, J.S. Clark and McKinley. We went down to McKinley. We went over to Capitol. Went over to all the high schools in our section. I called it district meets, as they called them. And so I ran the 100 and the 220 and some of those dual meets, as we would call them.
Okay. Now the meet at McKinley was called the C.J. Gilliam.
Yeah. There you go. Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you
know your meets. Yeah. And so we ran over there, and McKinley always had a good team. All those schools had good teams, and as coach, one of the trainers, Mr. Larry Green-Eye Paul, would say when he would go to the scratch meetings, Coach Banks would say, "Okay, Capital, McKinley, you guys can stay maybe Cypress Grove, but the rest of you guys, Kirk running 100 today, so who is going to be second?" And so I said, "Wow, man, Coach Banks put that kind of pressure on me, man." I said, "Man, Banks would be in that blowing smoke. When you're going to run the 100 and the 220, he would really get out and really talk about them and say, who is going to get second? Because my man is going to get first if he's running the 100 and the 220. So that day, at that time, I felt I was accepted into not only to the team effort, because I was chosen the captain of both 65 and 66 team. I was a track team captain. Okay. So I not only the players accepted me, the coach accepted me as well.
Okay. And did you go to the you went to the New Orleans City meet instead of Cypress
Right.
Grove?
To the Cypress Grove, right. Okay. Yeah, we went to that city meet in New Orleans because it was a bigger meet, had bigger trophies, and Banks was hard on those trophies. If you knew you had big trophies, we wanted to come and take all the trophies back to Scotland. So that's what we did.
Okay. Did you all ever go to the meet in Alexandria at Peabody?
No, because see, Peabody was in the LILAC, and we were in the LIALO. See, as you know, the track program in the state of Louisiana at the time under LIALO was listed in 3 areas. So we were in the LIALO. Peabody was in the LILAC, and schools like Booker T. Washington Shreveport was in LILIA. So A as an apple. So we did not compete against any of those schools until they came down to the Pelican Relays into the state meet, which was commonly called the LIALO. Then I would see all of those schools that we had never heard of. They would be down at that meet. So, okay. But we were separated in our different areas. So,
Oh, okay. So now that we've gone through both your football experience and your track experience, one thing I like to do before I get you to encapsulate the whole thing is I would like for you to tell me about your Pelican State relay experience.
Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. In 1965, I won the 100 and the 220 and the Pelican. And see, there was 2 things held at the Pelican. At Southern University. The Pelican Relays and the state championship. Okay. The Pelican Relays, I ran 100 in 1965 and in 1966. I won them both. All right, undefeated. 1966, I tied Jesse Warren's world record. And in what I would do is, as the gentleman stated in an article he wrote about me, he said, there are a lot of sprinters out there, but Kirk Clayton, who has several 9.5s in his century to his credit, Clayton is one of the state's most consistent sprinters. Okay? And so I was always consistent. I would set the record, and I would come back the next season and break it. And no one in Louisiana ever done anything like that. So that was one of the greatest moments, in my career when someone spoke about me in that light. So they gave me a title. I was called King of the Century. That means the 100-yard dash. So because that was undefeated in 65 and 66, and I ran some of the fastest times that they gave me in the 100-yard dash. Okay. And as quiet as it's kept, I broke Jesse Owens' record that day in 1966 on April 9th. April 10th, 1966. I broke Jesse Owens' record. I ran 9.3. There was no times on the clock. Now, I can't prove it because I wasn't there. But I'm telling you, because I was running. Mm-hmm. But I'm telling you what was stated. I ran 9, on numbers on the clock was 9.2s and 9.3s. Those are the only numbers. So they say, but George Anderson, Richard Stebbins, the college guys hadn't ran. So they said, okay, we know Clayton won, but we're not going to call out the time until after the college guys run. So Richard Stebbins Anderson in 9-4. So they said, okay, Clayton has 9-4. So I tied the world record in the 100, and Willie Davenport tied the record in the hurdles. So it's hearsay so far as I'm concerned because I wasn't there. All I can go by is Clayton, they're not going to believe that you did this because they don't think we know how to time people here, up here, and they don't know whether we got the smoke or the sound. So we're going to leave it at 9-4, and they will probably believe it. But if we go to 9-3 and 9-2 for a high schooler, they won't believe you. So that's the story that I received, the most damaging story to me, and that's why I do not believe in times when I kept running. I want to get to the wire first, and I took that on in the rest of my track career. I just want to win the medal. You can't take the medal. You can do the time, whatever you want with the time. But I got the gold medal, so that means I won.
Okay. Now, when you tied Jesse Owens' record at the Pelican State, who were some of the other runners who were in the race at the time?
Okay, well, they had guys in the race like Henderson Cook, who was the second fastest man in America at that time. They had Phillips. I think Jack Phillips was in that race. Noah Fauché was in that race from St. Aug. And they had a guy from Capitol in it, and McKinley, and I don't have their names at the present, but then that was it. And I think we had a guy by the name of, I think Jerry Davis was in it from Scotlandville as well, along with me, if I'm not mistaken. But those were some of the people that were in that, 100-yard dash, race with me at the time.
Okay. And so after that, how was your life affected?
After that, after I got the world record tied, then Track and Field News placed me at the top of the world record list for the 100-yard dash. And so they had me listed at Kirk Clayton, Scotlandville, and Baton Rouge, and they had a number of other guys behind me running 9.5s. But I was top of the world list, so that means I was a top dog in the 100-yard dash in the nation, in any high school in the nation. My time was tops, and internationally, I was the top dog. And Track and Field News is the Bible of track and field, and they quoted me, and they had me listed at that time as the #1 sprinter in the nation. And so that my career went off like a rocket.
Okay.
And then I was, after that, I had a chance to travel all over the country, going to different schools. I had a chance to go to West Point, to be the first African-American Negro Black to be in West Point, Military Academy. And from there, that was my top offer that I felt. Then after that, I worked my way down all the way to Grambling, Southern, all of the schools, but in Louisiana, but on the nation side, I had scholarships, UCLA, USC, all of them, that I had offers to come out and visit these schools, New York. So I went all over the country visiting schools, not only for track, but for football as well. Most of the Midwestern schools wanted me to play football, like up in Idaho and all the different places like that. They wanted me to play football, but a lot of the other local schools, Sun Belt schools, I had track. They wanted me to do track, like Southern California, Florida, and different places like that. So track was my motivator, and track was my instigator to make sure that I would do well and was able to move on from the state of Louisiana and do well as a high schooler.
Okay. And how did you make your decision about the area you would try to succeed in?
Well, Eddie Robinson came to me. Well, I talked to all of the people, Dick Hill. I was traveling with Southern a lot, but I just didn't appreciate the way Southern treated the local guys from Louisiana, especially people from Scotlandville. They really did do them justice. Most of those guys went up to Grambling, and so I said, okay. So Eddie Robinson came by. I talked to Eddie Robinson, and we agreed on me going to Grambling because Uncle Sam was in See, what it is when I got out of high school, because my birthday in February, so I was 18, and so I had a gun in one hand, drafted in the, and then I had college on the other hand, so I was drafted to go to the, United States Army, so I ended up going to Grambling for that fall, and Eddie Robinson and I talked, and I wanted to play pro ball, and so my decision was based on that. Since Grambling had more guys in the pros than anybody, I said, well, I can go to Grambling, and so that's how I ended up accepting Eddie Robinson offer to play football and run track. So that's how I made my decision, my first decision, to go to Grambling, and that's what I did. And I was there for that year and a summer. And after that, I did almost like a prep thing. I had an option to either stay or go. And so I chose to leave Grambling because I was the fastest freshman in the country and in '67. And because I'm keeping my ideas from 1959 and 1969, because after that, the areas that I ran in, they call it LIALO, was banned. It was dropped. So I didn't even exist after 1969. My era did not exist. My sporting events did not exist after that. They threw all those records away. So I ended up just going to Grambling and competing with Grambling, and then moved on after that following year out west, California.
Okay. Now, if you'd have to look at your high school experience retrospectively, is there anything you would do differently than what you did, or is there any light that you can share upon? If this would have happened, I would have done such.
No, because my parents were very knowledgeable, and they taught me, and I learned well about making decisions. And once I made a decision, I had to live with that decision, come will or come may. So when I made the decision to go to Grambling, I stayed there and tried to work that out with the powers to be, but they chose not to work with me, and I didn't see that was going to work, and so I decided to move on. And the greatest move I ever made in my life was from leaving Grambling and going to California. And so but then again, that's still in the 60s when I did leave Grambling, and I matriculated to California. But again, that once I made that decision, that was work. And that's a whole different life there. But from 67 to 69, that was a whole different world.
Okay.
It was something that I had to do, and I would say this: I only know one man who walked to New Orleans, and that's Fats Domino, and he did it sitting on a piano stool.
Okay.
So my thoughts were, I cannot walk to New Orleans from any place. So wherever I am, I'm going to have to make it work, and that's what I did.
Okay. Now tell me this: I understand that you are a member of various that you have received various awards since you've run track. Would you just tell me about what some of those awards are? Even.
Well, basically, I'm a 6-time Hall of Famer in track and field.
Okay.
And we can start with my in the 60s, I did get the, since we'd be looking at the 60s there, San Jose State, I'm a 2-time Hall of Famer, track, San Jose State. I'm a Hall of Famer at the Sugar Bowl down in New Orleans, on the mural down at New Orleans. I'm a Hall of Famer at Scotlandville Hall of Fame. They placed me in that in just 2018 here. I'm a Southern University, and I know that sounds strange. I went to Grambling, but I am also a Southern University Hall of Fame member. Yeah. So I have 6 of those Hall of Fames that have I've been blessed with, receiving those awards over the years, and I'm running in high cotton with those awards that I received in track and field.
Okay. So I think this just about concludes our interview. Is there anything else that you would like to say?
Yes. I have one project. I've done a number of things in my life, from publishing books to doing all types of things. But my last item that I started in 2013, 14 years was to get the LIALO recognized by a Hall of Fame, any Hall of Fame in the state of Louisiana. That's my last project that I'm working on and still working on it, trying to get people to understand that from 1929 approximately to 1969, there were some great acts that performed under the LIALO, LILLA, and LILLC, and it has been forgotten. And I'm trying to get these Hall of Fames, whom I'm a member of in Louisiana, the Louisiana Historical Society of Preservation, the Black Hall of Black People, Black Publication Companies in Louisiana, anyone to step up and recognize the fact that African Americans, Negroes, and Blacks and colored people did great things in the state of Louisiana before 1970, when the LIALA gave the black people the kiss of death and brought them into their league again. They were always there in 1965 and 66, but I could not compete in those leagues because I was a Negro and a colored man. But my thoughts are, my record, and I beat the whites that they put in front of me in the state of Louisiana, in Texas. So my thoughts are this: if we are that great now, and I look at teams and campuses that I couldn't walk on in 1965, they have all black players. LSU, for one, a good example. Ole Miss, all these schools that I had a chance to go to be the first black, but I could not compete against them. So I'm just trying to get the state of Louisiana, which is called a sportsman's paradise, to accept the fact that Negroes and colored people were great in athletics. And that LIALO, I'm going to continue to work until my last days. Who knows when that'll be. But I'm still trying to work on that and get someone to step up. Blacks won't step up. Whites sometimes they think it's a good idea, but they won't, push it. So, but I'm not going to give up. That will be my memorial to the sports in Louisiana, is to get the LIALO in someone's Hall of Fame with every school, and I have every school, as you well know, as you are dealing with the African American high schools in Louisiana before 1970. We have them all. So they can't say, well, man, we don't know what schools they were. Yes, I can get them for you. And if I can't get them, I know where to go to get them. So that's what I'm trying to do, and that's what I would love to leave as my legacy for the state of Louisiana, and for everyone who either you deceased or alive, to look back and show your posterity that you were great. You don't have to look for a hero in the state of Louisiana. They are already there. Even if they are deceased, they were great. And that's my legacy. That's my calling card, the LIALO. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Dr. Clayton, for allowing me to interview you. And, we'll sign off now, and thank you very much.